which we can apply these epigenetic principles to our lifestyle. So exercise as an epigenetic mechanism, how does this help you achieve good health? Mind body interventions and gene expression. So how does a mind body intervention like meditation help you? How does your gut microbiome help you in expressing certain genes? Right? What is your biological clock? What is your addiction pattern? Yeah, all these things we're going to discuss today. And let me take you to a small presentation I've made for you, because all this is, I want you to give a very practical and hands-on approach to epigenetics. So I'm sure you must have read all this, and I have summed up in the form of a presentation which will be registered in your mind in a very, in a better way. Okay, so I'm sure you have read the text, but I have prepared something for you all. Just give me a second. Okay, cool. Epigenetics. So the topic itself is so interesting that maybe, like a few years ago, we did not even know what is epigenetics, right? But now it's a booming industry. I would like to disease. You're not fated to have a disease. If it runs in your family, you can do something about preventing that disease, right? So that is basically meaning that the DNA that you carry isn't your destiny. Okay, so the new science of epigenetics has revealed that what choices you make in your life can change your genes as well as your kids or your, future generation genes, right? So I'll explain that in detail. Now, a lot of years ago, around 16, 17 years ago, researchers completed this first map of all the genes of human beings. You had the Human Genome Project and all that, correct? Then it did promise to revolutionize the field of molecular medicine, but something was still missing. So they thought that, maybe there is something that is not going well, something, the puzzle is still remaining unsolved. Okay, so then they found a beautiful science, and by doing all the sequencing of those over 3 billion chemical base pairs, and then they studied a lot, they researched a lot, they found that there's something above and over the genes. So the genes are not the only things. There is something over and above those genes that are, making it work. Okay, so that are basically somewhere altering the DNA or the effect of the DNA. Yeah, and that, my dear friends, is called epigenetics. Yeah, so there is a mechanism that a person has with which he can control which genes are turned on and turned off. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, so it's like a light switch. You enter a room, you want darkness, you close the switch. I mean, you shut down the switch, right? You switch it off. But if you want light, if you want little brightness, you will switch it on. So it is that control that you have. If I Similarly, if I put that into another analogy, if I have a particular disease in my family, but I don't want it. Obviously, I don't want disease. Who wants disease, right? So I want to switch that gene off. Will I be able to do it with today's science? Yes, I'll be able to do it. Correct? And that science is called epigenetics. So let us understand what is it. Okay, so you saw the video and it clearly said that it means on top of something. Epi, the word epi means on top or over and above something. So epigenetics means something that is above your genetics. Okay, now there are certain tags on your DNA. Okay, so you've seen the DNA structure, you've studied it. So there are certain tags present on the DNA. Those are called epigenetic tags. They basically are biological markers. Okay, so they will decide how the information is passed. Okay, so let's say if I am undergoing a lot of stress, see, I'll be giving you a lot of examples, huh? Because I want you all to understand this. I don't want to just go word by word, and that doesn't make sense. Correct? So I'll give you examples. You can relate to it. Okay. So let's say I am undergoing a lot of stress, and my total internal system is stressed out. I have a lot of metabolic stress, psychological stress, physical stress. Okay, so that information, that there is something wrong in the thinking pattern, there is something wrong in the metabolism, that information gets carried on to the DNA, and then accordingly the gene expression happens. So even if I don't want to have diabetes or cardiac disease or cancer or Alzheimer's, because it runs in my family, I want to avoid it, I want to take care, I will have to, probably adopt certain mechanisms by which I will be able to reduce my stress, because that stress is leading me to that disease path. Got it? So I know I have stress. I know I have a risk of Alzheimer's, let's say, taking one example. So if I don't want Alzheimer's, I will have to do something about my stress, because I can't do something about my genes. On one hand, there is genes, on one hand, there is my environment. Which one will you choose? Obviously, something that I can change, right? So I'll choose my environment. So it is that, okay? Be very, very aware of this. It's not a change in your genotype, it is a change in your phenotype. What do I mean? I cannot change my Alzheimer's risk here. In the same example, I cannot change my Alzheimer's risk. I cannot go and undo my DNA makeup, right? But I can definitely do something about my phenotype, right? And how do I do something about my phenotype? What is a phenotype? It's a trait, right? It's a characteristic, it's a trait, it's something that is getting expressed or manifested, right? So for example, cancer, Alzheimer's, black hair, brown eyes, fair skin, or maybe curly hair, or maybe even short height or long height. These are all phenotypes. These are all your external, what do you say, things that you can see and feel. Okay, in terms of disease, now these are in terms of physical characteristics, but in terms of disease, anything that gets expressed or anything that gets manifested or anything that occurs can be said as phenotype. So you can say vitamin D deficiency is a phenotype. Okay, and in the future sessions, I think the next session you will learn what is the genetic report. I think you must have studied also in your course module. How does a genetic report look like? So on the left hand side, you would have seen those are the phenotypes. So the expression of that gene is the phenotype. Okay, so there is a change in the phenotype. I can alter my risk of vitamin D deficiency, but I cannot alter my genotype, which is responsible for vitamin D deficiency. Clear? I'll move ahead. Yeah, just show me a thumbs up. Yeah, I can see you all. Yeah, okay, great. All right. So epigenetic changes are external modifications. बाहर से आप उसको थोड़ा control कर रहे हो to the DNA that turn the genes on and off. Okay. Now आप बोलोगे, wow, ma'am, it's so easy. But it's not that easy. You'll have to be like literally on your feet to be a warrior in terms of epigenetics. Ki, chalo, I want to switch off that gene and I want to switch on that gene. No, I'm just kidding. It is easy only if you know how to do it. Okay, chalo, we'll see that in the coming slides. Okay, all right. So this is like a switch. You switch on or you switch off. Okay, and epigenetic tags affect how the cells read the genes. So how your cells are reading the genes, I'll give you an example also in the next two, 3 slides. Okay, now researchers have found that environmental factors such as diet, exercise, de-stressing activities, sleeping well are all ways by which we can activate epigenetic changes to bring about gene expression. So just be aware of, just focus on this word. Okay, gene expression. I'm explaining that in the next slide. But did you get this? These are your epigenetic mechanisms: diet, exercise, de-stressing, sleeping well, etc. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's understand genetic expression. So it's I just gave you an example of switching on and switching off, right? We'll take that analogy. Now this is a process by which the instructions in our DNA are converted into a functional product. So what is a functional product? It's usually a protein, right? We've all learned that by now, correct? So ultimately it's the protein, no, that gets synthesized. So DNA and I mean the protein synthesis thing that you have learned. So this protein, how is it giving? What instructions is it giving? So that is very important to know. Okay, so if you have a very tightly modulated mechanism, yeah, so then you can obviously change the environment. I mean, if you change the environment, you can obviously change how the cell responds to it. Correct. If there was a switch to control what when the proteins are made and how much amount are they made in, that would be great. I'll give you a simple example here. Let me show you this, then probably you would understand it very clearly. Okay, I have made something for y'all. Let's take an example of FTO gene. Okay, the reason I'm giving you a lot of examples is so that you can relate to it and then understand in other senses. Okay, have you heard about this gene, FTO gene? The fat mass and obesity. It's although it's FTO, but it is actually not FMO. But the full form is fat mass and obesity gene. Okay, as the name says, it means that it can lead to obesity if there is a mutation in this gene. Okay, and this gene is the worst hit, especially now today when obesity is a epidemic, right? So FTO gene can be mutated. It's very common to have mutations in this gene. Now let's see how does the epigenetic mechanism work. Okay, considering this gene, so considering this gene, let's say you have epigenetic switches on your DNA for this gene. Okay, so let's say this is the FTO gene and there is a tag on it which you can either switch on or switch off. So let's say if your epigenetic factors, for example, environment or lifestyle habits, whatever habits you have, diet, exercise, sleep, stress, all those habits, and your environment, whether you live in a stressful environment or whatever, right? Or see, because stress ultimately also leads to overeating, and overeating will also lead to obesity, you know. So in that sense, your environment or lifestyle is important. So if you have an environment like that, so let's say if you have an environment where you're eating a very healthy diet, so there is no room for junk food, there is no room for processed packaged food, okay, or high calorie foods, you are eating a very balanced diet. Okay, so then you will be able to switch off your uh, gene for the obesity. Correct? Got it? Huh? You understood on one side what happens when you eat healthy. So this is your lifestyle, no? This is your, so these are examples of lifestyle only. Okay? Now let's look at the other side. Okay, so then what will it lead to? This kind of a lifestyle will lead to this gene turning off, which means that FTO gene, even if it has a mutation, it will not lead to obesity, it will lead to a normal weight. The person will be a normal weight person. Okay, on the other hand, if you eat a lot of junk food, if you eat a lot of processed packaged unhealthy food, then that can turn on the gene. Okay, and when that turns on the gene, you get obesity. So what is the significant takeaway from this message? That although you had a mutation in the FTO gene, you had, that means I had that gene of obesity. But why am I not gaining weight? Because my lifestyle is wonderful. My lifestyle is healthy. I'm not eating all this junk. I'm eating healthy food. And that is why even in spite of having an obesity gene in my body, I have managed to keep it off and that thus achieve normal weight. Simple? Yeah? Great. If you understood this, you've understood the entire thing. Okay, so that's pretty much the summary of it. Okay, how does it work? Very, very important to know. So there are two mechanisms of action. Okay, how does epigenetics work? अभी ऐसा तो नहीं है that आज मैंने बोला कि आप switch on करो, आप switch on कैसे करोगे पर, है ना? आप switch on कैसे करोगे? You'll not be, you don't know how to do it, obviously, because that is not something like a physical mechanism. It happens at a cellular level, it happens at the DNA level. Okay, there are two ways by which you can achieve epigenetic control, or you know, how does it work? Let's understand that. So you all, I believe you've all read the content and the, you know, chapters of for this module. So that's why, but if you have not, then I will definitely go into the basics of it. Okay, but those who have read might find कि ये थोड़ा सा repetitive हो रहा है. Okay, all right, chalo, let's see. DNA methylation is one way of achieving that control, and second is histone modification. Okay, let's understand this. Now, this are believed to be causing the epigenetic change. I have a picture here for you all. Okay, so this is your chromosome. Okay, now you know that the chromosome has a coiled DNA. The DNA is coiled around the chromosome, correct? I mean, obviously the chromosome is made up of DNA, correct? So this chromosome has been opened, like how you have a telephone wire, that handset जो आता था landline. Okay, so how you have that wire, let me switch on the laser. So this is basically coiled, and if you open it, you'll be able to see that there is this DNA here. Okay? Now, there are these circular rings on the DNA. Okay? What are these circular rings called? They're called histones. Histone is nothing but a protein. Okay? I'm going very slow because this is little technical. This can go above your head. Okay? You don't have to remember names, but you need to remember how it works. Okay, so ये histone एक है. Hindi, English both are working, no, for everybody. I might just talk in Hindi little bit, thoda thoda. Okay, so there are these coiled DNA around that protein. Okay, there is a significance to that. I'll come to that. Okay, now if you see the red one here, okay, so that is coiled around the histone. Okay, that is completely tightly coiled around the histone. So that means the histone is saving it. हाँ, वो shelter दे रहा है. It's not accessible. कोई उसको देख नहीं सकता है. It's not visible. It's not readable. And the moment it is not readable, the gene is off. The gene is turned off. Simple? Yeah? Can you see this red area? The DNA is accessible for the protein, for the the environment to attack on it. If let's say I smoke a lot, for example, okay, I'm a smoker, let's say, that smoke, that tobacco, that nicotine will find its way to hamper this DNA. The chemical substance in that nicotine will make sure, oh, I got a hold of this DNA, let us affect it. Yeah, plus to make matters worse, you have a risk of cancer in your genes. I'm just giving random examples. Okay, so to make matters worse, you have a gene in your body that can give you cancer. On top of that, knowing that or unknowing that, I don't know, you know or you don't know, you smoke, the DNA that is accessible will turn on the gene and you will get cancer. Got it in a simple way? Yeah. This is, my dear friends, the science by which epigenetics works. Histone modification. So how do you modify the histone so that no DNA remains accessible? Okay. How do you tightly coil around the DNA to the histone? All that depends on the lifestyle factors. Coming to that, okay, so now you see these pigtails over here, small little things that are coming out of the histone, those are tails. So uske upar jaake wo, let's say the nicotine, okay, so it cannot affect it because it's protected by the histone. Okay, but this one is gone, pakad liya usko. Okay, so that is my way of explaining this. There could be different ways of explaining it, but I hope you got this, how it works, because this is very important for you all to know, not just from an exam point of view or a test point of view, but also in terms when you understand how to apply epigenetics in the future, in the upcoming slides, or I mean the session. Okay, all right. So let me go ahead. I'll give you an example here. Let's have a little fun. We have enough of science now. Okay. So let's talk about grammar. Okay. There is an example here. When we write a statement, don't we put a punctuation mark? Don't you think there's a punctuation that is important? It is, because it can change the meaning of how do you interpret those words or sentences, right? Now let's see this. So the grandma got really worried. What? When the kids said, let's eat grandma, the kids are coming and going to eat grandma, she thought. But when you put a comma here, you're actually saving a life there, because you're changing the information that is getting passed. Okay. So then the grandma was relieved. Oh, they're calling me to eat. Right. All right. Let's have another look. Okay. This is another example. So an English professor said that come and put a punctuation on this sentence. A woman without her man is nothing. There is no comma, full stop here. Right. So all the males in the class wrote, because they are males. So they thought a woman without her man. So they put a comma here. A woman without her man is nothing, right? But all the females in the class came and wrote, a woman without her, the man is nothing, right? Where you put the comma will decide how you understand that statement, correct? The same is the case with your epigenetics. How you treat yourself, your body, your mind, your soul, how you allow it to be treated determines the fate of your health. I'll be very, very see, I'm giving you a lot of examples, yeah, but you might find a little repetitive examples also. But because that hits somewhere, that's why I'm using it. Okay. So it is up to me that should I smoke or no. Hai. So I'm putting that full stop. No, I don't want to smoke because I know I have cancer in my family. Right? So that is that punctuation. That lifestyle is your punctuation. Do I want to put it or do I don't want to put it? Will decide how that statement is read. Yeah. Did you all learn something new today? Yeah. Great. Thanks for that energy. Right. Okay. Let's go ahead now. We all know this. We saw the video of nature and nurture. अगर उसका practical example मैं आपको दूं, you must have थोड़ा सा फिल्मी हो जाते हैं, चलो, okay? So you must have seen the movie Chalbaz, Sita Geeta, Judwa. It's the same thing. You inherit a trait or you acquire a trait. As simple as that. Traits are basically inherited or acquired. So I have brown or black hair, that's an inherited trait. But if I dye my hair into a blonde or a burgundy color, that's an acquired trait. Simple. If I have a short height, but I don't want to look short, I have inherited a short height. I will wear heels to look taller. That's an acquired thing. So people will say, oh wow, she's tall. Yeah, but you've done something to change that thing, right? Similarly, the same thing applies to your physical appearance as well as your personality characteristics. Okay. So on one side you have what was that name, Lucky Lyle and Trouble Tim. Yeah, okay, forget that. Apna desi wala example lete. You have Prem and Raja from Judwa. Okay, both were born in the same family, good, well-mannered, rich family. Okay, one got separated from the parents, right? The other one was with the parent. He grew up to be a good man, decent looking man, good manners, good nature and all that. The other one who got separated was brought up in a gunda wala environment, है ना? So he became a gunda. Okay, that is the environment, that is the influence of your environment, your experiences, your relationships with people, your culture around, surrounding you. All these matter a lot, and that determines your behavior. Okay, so when we talk about behavior, I would like to quote an example here. Behavior का एक example देती हूँ मैं आपको. ADHD, I don't know if you've heard of this. Okay, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. What does a child, it usually affects the children, it affects adults also very rarely, but it usually affects children commonly. The child becomes restless, the child becomes hyperactive in order to get attention from the parent, because the parent is not giving attention to the child. Attention deficit, there is a deficit of attention, there is a lack of attention given to the child. So he becomes naughty, he becomes hyperactive, because he thought that the parents are not paying attention to me. Let me do something, let me break a vase, let me break a table, and people will notice me that I am living in this house. That is your environment. If you give a good environment to a child, a nurtured environment, do you think he would do that? He would not do that. So although he does not have a gene for ADHD, but his environment affected that, his environment caused that. So epigenetic mechanisms or epigenetic factors have the ability to cause a particular problem in you even if you don't have the gene, right? Genetics का कैसा है? Genetics का क्या है कि अगर environment अच्छा है, so even if you have that gene, it may not get triggered. But environment का कैसा है? It is independent of your gene. Na? It is independent of your gene. So you have certain epigenetic influence also, right? If a woman is a smoker during her pregnancy or before her pregnancy, you have that example in your course content, right? It can affect 3 generations of that woman, herself, her unborn daughter, and that unborn that daughter's daughter. So that is epigenetics, my dear friends. It is so important to change your environment in order to live a happy and healthy life. Yeah, and that can happen with all these mechanisms. If you see, none of this is internal. Nobody is born with any of this. Are you born with disease? Disease exposure risk हो सकता है, but can you decide your fate when you are in your mother's womb कि मैं शायद एक polluted जगह पे रहूंगा या शायद COVID stricken area में रहूंगा? No, you cannot. It only happens after you're born. So let's take an example of this. Okay, seasonal correlations. I'll give you an example again. I have a dry skin. I have an oily skin. Okay, but when I go to a snowfall area, my weather has changed, my climate has changed, my environment has changed. Okay, I will obviously not produce oil. In fact, I will get a dry skin because the weather is such. So in spite of having a gene for oily skin and acne prone skin, I will not get acne over there because there is no oil produced. Got it? Yeah, I'm giving you random examples, so not just health related, but a lot of other things. Okay, financial status. You will say, why is this here? A luxurious lifestyle because of good financial status can have a certain impact on your genes. So that is an epigenetic factor. You will have that money and you will have that, you are well to do enough to control your disease risk, provided you use it for that. You use that money for beautifying your health, है ना? But आजकल ऐसा होता नहीं है. People who are rich, they die, they go into the ICU because they have not used that money for their own health. That's the issue. Okay? Gut microbiome. How do you affect your gut microbiome? By eating right, by sleeping on time, by de-stressing yourself. So again, that is under your control. All these are under your control. None of these are genetic. Genetic जो भी होता है वो इधर होता है body के अंदर, but ये बाहर से आता है आपका. How is your psychological state? Are you depressed? Then you're even if you do not have a gene for smoking, if you're depressed, you'll start smoking. है ना? Alternative medicine, music therapy, color therapy, massage therapy, a lot of alternative healers do this. I mean, they help you with that, right? So these are all your epigenetic factors. Now let's see what are the main 6 epigenetic factors, and that will make sure how you apply. That will give you an idea how do you apply to your everyday life. The first one is nutrition and food habits. Whether you have a risk of, let's say, I'll quote examples here, okay? If I have a gene which says that I have a lifetime risk of vitamin B12 deficiency, okay, that means every year I will have deficiency. I mean, I will get this recurrent problem that, array, no matter what I do it, after 6 months, again it crops up, again a mouth ulcer comes up. Mouth ulcer is basically a symptom of B12 deficiency, okay? So I'm quoting that. Why does it happen? Then you think, oh, should I get a genetic test done? And in that genetic test, it shows that yes, you have a risk of B12 deficiency. That could be the reason. But if your lifestyle, if your nutrition and food habits are good, you will take enough vitamin B12 in the diet, it won't affect you in spite of you having that gene, right? Physical activity or exercise. Now, we'll see how exercise is an epigenetic mechanism. There's a beautiful topic in your syllabus, okay? We'll see that. Physical activity and exercise are both different things. I'll come to that, okay? Just give me a second. Okay. Then next is, how does your sleep pattern affect your genes? Do you think it affects? Write it in the chat box. I'll open the chat for a while so that I can drink water. Do you think your sleep affects your genes? Yes? Okay. I'll tell you how does it affect, okay, in a very simple way. It affects your hormones, okay? Now tell me, for diabetes, which is the hormone that is very important to be secreted in a what do you say, in a normal range? Insulin, correct. So if you don't sleep well, yeah, assuming I take all the examples on myself, huh? I don't give it to you. Okay. I have a risk of diabetes in my family. Okay. I did a genetic test. I saw, oh my God, I'm a possible carrier of diabetes. Okay. And obviously, my dad also has. Chalo. So that proves it. Okay. Secondly, I sleep at 1 o'clock at night. I'm always on my phone. My lifestyle is completely messed up. Okay. I do not wake up on time, or probably if I have a meeting, then I'll have to ruin my sleep because I slept late, but still I have to get up early. So I just got like 4 hours of sleep, for example, or 5 hours of sleep. Then what will happen is insulin gets affected. Your insulin secretion gets affected. Yeah. Not only just insulin, there are other hormones that are affected, your thyroid hormone. And then people complain that, oh my God, why why in India thyroid cases are rising? Because see what Indians are doing. See what you are doing. You're sleeping at 2 or 3 and then you're complaining कि मेरे तो कभी family में thyroid नहीं था. I got it. Because your lifestyle is messed up. You're hampering your hormones. You're disturbing them to a level, sometimes it cannot be even irreversible. Okay, you cannot reverse a particular disease. What is the point of going to that level if you cannot reverse a disease? Okay, disease happens, you should take the necessary steps and finish it. You just finish it from the root cause itself. But no, it goes on and on. Yes, Maria, that's a very nice question. What about people who work in night shifts? For them, it's very, very important. So that comes into your counseling, okay? But I'll still tell you because you've asked this question and because we were talking about it, and that's a very valid question. What do people do when they have to go opposed to their biological clock? Okay, but then in that case, that is for a certain period of time. For example, a month or 2 months, you have a particular shift. Your body adapts to that mechanism. Okay, then in that case, what you do is you tell that person that whenever it is the time to sleep, you will not have any distractions, even if it is against your body clock. So you're sleeping in the morning at around 9 or 10, okay, but you keep the room dark, you let melatonin get secreted so that you get good sleep. The idea is to get sound sleep, because now we know that our working patterns have changed. We work for different countries, so obviously we have to adjust to their uh, shifts, right? But that should not hamper your health. You should be smart enough to understand that when sleep is there, I should not compromise my sleep timing, because I know that is going to affect my health. So all your hormones, guys, all your hormones, insulin, thyroid, glucagon, uh, cortisol, yeah, a lot of hormones are related to diseases. I mean, if cortisol goes out of hand, cortisol is a stress hormone. If you mess up with that, you get heart disease, you get hypertension, you get diabetes and whatnot. Estrogen, definitely, Abhijit ji. Thanks for putting that. Yes, all hormones depend on your biological clock. And biological clock को आप कैसे reset करोगे? How would you reset that? You will reset your sleep patterns. I took a lot of time in sleep, that is why, because very important. People are ignoring this, that's why. Okay, let's go ahead. Hydration. Okay, if your hydration is your water intake is not good enough, your fluid intake is not good enough, it can affect your kidneys, it can affect your skin, it can affect your other processes, digestion and all that, circulation and all that. You've seen the importance of water in the past sessions, right? So that is what it is. It has a epigenetic mechanism. Mental well-being, so we'll see the mind body interventions in the further sessions. Intake of toxic substances. When you consume a lot of toxins in terms of alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, etc., it changes your it changes the epigenetic tags, it changes the information that you're giving. I gave you an example of smoking, right? So the nicotine affects the part of the DNA which is accessible, and you change the gene, turn the gene on. So all these are your external factors, none of this is internal, but it affects your internal body. Okay, so ultimately keep this in mind. Genetics is the one that loads the gun, but the gun is of no use till you pull the trigger, and that is your lifestyle. So don't worry if you are a carrier of a gene, unless and until your lifestyle also supports that. Then you need to worry, and then you need to change your lifestyle. Worrying will not help alone. Okay, let's see what is there in the chat. Oh, great. Thank you, Abhijit sir. So let me stop this and I'll come to the course material. So how is it going till now? How is it going? Are you with me? Am I going too fast or what? How is it? Are you able to understand? Fantastic. Great. Lovely. Yes. If time permits, we can have a question answer round in the end. But I want you all to what I try doing is I go slow so that you don't have questions. That's my way of teaching, probably. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Sumit sir. Thank you. Kalpana ji, your understanding. Wow. Thank you. Okay, great. Chalo, let me go to the course. Okay. Yeah. So what I've done is, if you've understood, I've summed up these 4 things. So we don't have to go into each and every. Lino sir is laughing. Yes. So why? I mean, you've already read it. Why do we repeat it? है ना? तो इसलिए मैंने आपको पूरा presentation में डाल के दिया ताकि आप diagrammatic representation से समझ सको. You should understand that way. Okay, come on. Now let's go to epigenetics and environmental factors. Okay. Okay, you've already seen this. Sorry, not this one. Sorry. Okay, let's talk about, you've studied about food as a nutrigenomic or an epigenetic mechanism last time. You want me to give an example of, I think I gave a couple of examples right now. Let's talk about food, okay? Because I'm directly starting with exercise ना, इसके लिए वो ऐसा लग रहा है कि कुछ missing है, but it is not. You've read it, you've studied it in the past, but I will just repeat it, okay? So my food has the power to turn on a disease or to turn off a disease. Clear on this? Everybody is with me on the same page? Okay. If you've seen that example of FTO gene as well, and specifically used an example of diet there because I know that it's we directly